What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Inside the Five. It's Griff.
It's Stav.
And on this episode, we're doing a deep dive. We have three sports we're covering. We got the NBA, a lot of news coming up in the NBA. We got some Celtics. We got Dame dropping 71 points. A lot of talking points about the NBA. We had a big weekend of college basketball, as always. My Tar Heels maybe saving their season. We'll talk about it soon. And then we're going to wrap up with our first Red Sox talk, MLB talk, rule changes, the Red Sox, who we think are going to surprise us in good and bad ways this season. Stav, we got a jam-packed episode. What do you say?
I got my Sox hat on. I'm ready to go. I'm excited for baseball. I'm excited for this episode. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Inside the Five. Let's get things started. Let's talk NBA. We'll go a little bit out of order what we have on the notes, but you got a headline with Damian Lillard scoring 71 points. I don't know if you watched that game, Griff, but it was just unbelievable the shots he was hitting. He was pulling up from half court, essentially, like Dame Lillard range, hitting fadeaways. And when we say he scored 71, it was a very efficient 71. It's not like he was just ball hawking and stat pad. He was creating his own shots and scoring when he needed to. This was a very efficient and a very pure 71.
Yeah, and I watched like half of the second quarter on. Once I noticed that like he was getting really hot in the second quarter and he had a big second quarter and he finished the half with 41 points in the first half. And I mean, from there on out, it was just, about getting him the ball and seeing what he could do. But the thing is, you're right, Stav. It's not like he slowed down on his productivity with shooting the ball. Like, obviously, he took 38 shots in this game. That's kind of something that you have to do to score 71 points. But I feel like 38 shots, we've seen a lot. Like, we've seen around that number of attempts in a game. And I bet you we've seen a lot less points with those amount of attempts from the field. I mean, he was just on fire early throughout the whole game. The Trailblazers, I mean, are floating around that 500 mark, but Dame's playing, I mean, the best he's played at least in the past 4 or 5 years, if not maybe the best he's ever played in his career. And Dame's been very exciting to watch. It's just sad that literally he has nothing behind him on that team. That team sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And I mean, looking at the box score, nobody else on that team scored over 13 points.
Yep.
Like, other than obviously Dame who scored 78, but their second leading scorer was Jeremy Grant with 13 points. And then after that, it was Nazir Little off the bench with 11. And then nobody else scored over double digits. So, I mean, granted, Dame did score 71 points, and he took 38 of the 77 shots. It's just you're not seeing productivity out of anybody else in that lineup. They have some decent play. Like Cam Reddish is a guy. He's a project. He's been like one of the biggest project players in the NBA. Jeremy Grant's a solid player. He's a guy who's always in trade talks with good teams, right? People are trying to buy Jeremy Grant to improve their team. Matisse Thybulle, recent acquisition, defensive-minded player. But other than that, they don't really have these guys. They're a very small ball lineup. Drew Eubanks is their starting center. But Dame just didn't score. He had 6 assists and 6 rebounds as well. He turned over the ball twice. With that usage rate, that's unbelievable. I don't like this is just one of those things where I know the Rockets suck. The Rockets, I think, are, if not the worst team in the NBA, the second worst team. I think the Spurs are worse. But
that sounds right.
Yeah, whatever it is, Texas basketball's down bad. But it's still against NBA talent that Dame is just making these guys look stupid and his shot making. I think Dame, I think I saw a stat, his last 10 games, he's averaging like 37 points or something like that. He's on an incredible tear right now. It just sucks that he's on a terrible team.
Yeah, I was looking just through his past games last night while he was like, creating history. And I was just like seeing like people have been talking a lot about Dame, and obviously we're on like the other side of the country, so we don't watch him that often. But I was watching him last night on League Pass, and just as he was going on, like he's getting MVP chance and stuff like that, I was like, Dame's not really doing that good this season, right? I was going like, The game before this, he had like 40. The game before that, he had 30. The game before that, he had 50. He just like he's been doing it every single game after, especially after All-Star break. There's only been a couple, but before that, he got really hot. We saw him in the All-Star game. He was awesome just pulling from like half court. And I mean, he's shooting from everywhere. Once he passes that line, you have to guard him. He will shoot from everywhere. And he's one of the purest, like, in terms of shot creating, like there isn't a shot that he can't find. Like he will find somewhere on the court where he can jump up in the air, fade away a little bit, and he will be open enough for himself to just swish in like a 40-foot bomb. He hits those shots. It's crazy that you remember obviously his playoff game winner against the Thunder where it was like Dame time and he came back like last week or 2 weeks ago and he was like, yeah, honestly, that was a bad shot. But he does it like throughout the game. He does it like he'll bring the ball up in the middle of the second quarter. He'll cross half court. He sees like the edge of the Trailblazers logo and he just pulls it and turns around. Like he's doing some things that we have never seen in the game. And people say this is stuff like Steph Curry, but Dame has been doing this and Dame does this. And the way that Dame creates his shot, I feel like he has a little bit more of a fade to it. Like when, he's running off to the side and he's kind of jumping over to the side. Like people are trying to emulate that and saying it's Steph Curry. This is Dame's thing, and Dame's been doing it.
No, I mean, it's unbelievable. And he's been doing this his entire career. I think we're going to look back at his career in like 15, 20 years whenever he's out of the league. And we're gonna be like, damn, Damian Lillard was really a treat to watch. And no one really talks about Dame unless he does something like this, right? And it's unfortunate, and he's a guy. It's kind of become a meme where he's not leaving Portland. It's a known fact. He refuses to leave Portland. He wants to bring. I assume he wants to bring a title to the city. But it's very unlikely right now that this team does anything, yet alone even make the playoffs. So it's very respectable in my opinion. You get drafted by this team, this organization, these fans love you, and you show out every single night possible, and you give them a historic performance. And I think he scored 60 not even a month ago. Like he's one of the most pure scorers we'll ever see. And it's a damn shame that the Trailblazers aren't doing more to get talent around him because in the playoffs, we all know Dame's it's a spectacle. He's hit so many memorable game winners. Like I think about, was it 2014 when he hit the game winner against the Rockets to send them home over Chandler Parsons. And obviously we just talked about it. Sorry, Darren, the one against the Thunder a few years back. He does this time and time again. Right. And it's a damn shame hopefully we will get to see them in the playoffs and we can see Damian Lillard in the playoffs. One of the best clutch players of all time, in my opinion. But the other guys got to step up for this to happen. And we talk about Dame obviously scoring 71. This is the second time this year that 71 points exactly have been scored. Donovan Mitchell did it in January. This was the night of the Monday Night Football game with the Bills and the Bengals. So it kind of went under the radar in a sense where that wasn't even close to the biggest sports story that night. So no one really talks about that. But I feel like this is the first time
since Booker.
Well, like I'm saying, like this might be the first time in NBA history that two different guys have scored over
in the same season.
Yeah. Like that, it's unbelievable the level of scoring we're seeing. I mean, granted, Donovan Mitchell did it in overtime, and Dame did it in 4. It's still 71 points. 71 points in an NBA game is unbelievable.
And I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but I watched the whole second half. He could have had more. He got
easily
taken out, which they went up big. And if you look at the box score stuff, I mean, all 5 of the starters, their plus minuses was, plus 20 and up. And then I think there was only one person off the bench that had a positive plus minus.
Yeah,
everybody else
right now.
They took him out in the third quarter with like 6 minutes left and took him out for the rest of the quarter, brought him back in the fourth. If he was in there for those 6 minutes, he can hit 80. And, by the end of the game, though, he was exhausted, and rightfully so. He dropped 71 points. And not only did he do it efficiently, like from 3, from getting inside the rack, he went 14 for 14 from the free throw line. He just did everything. I mean, he carried this team, and he's been carrying this team. And the stat that I talk about, I have his past games up. He dropped 71. This is their first game since All-Star break. But right before that, he had 39, 40, 38, 33. Like, he just is, I mean, insane. Like, I don't know what else to say even about it. And he's just, I don't know. Like, it's tough that he's on this team because it's really not going to mean that much unless they can sneak into to the play-in, and they're going to have to play like LeBron. And I would have them beating LeBron, and I would have Dame dropping like 60.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys. This is kind of us being on a broken record here, but he's one of those guys who can literally take over a game and change the outcome by himself, right?
And that was a good game yesterday. It was a pretty good game. They got it close in the fourth, and Dame came back and just started hitting every shot again.
He needed to score 71 for them to win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not necessarily 71. He needed to score at the level he did for them to win. Because, I mean, I bet on the Trailblazers. Like, I had them live -7.5 or something. And in that third quarter, I was like, okay, time to put Dame back in. Like, the Rockets made it a close game. I think it got to within 5 or something. And then Dame came back in, and it was a 20-point game. But where are they in the standings right now? I mean, this is turning into they're fourth in their own division. But I think they're in the play. They might be the 10th in the play. No, they're 11th. They're one game out behind New Orleans. So we could very well. They're half a game out actually. Yeah. So we could see him make a run. What happened to Yusuf Nurkic? Is he done?
He's out for the season.
Yeah, I think I knew that. That's why. But see, that's a guy who would have helped them so much.
Definitely.
Yeah. So shout out Dane, one of the best players in the NBA. Absolute treat to watch. And shout out, if I didn't have NBA League Pass, I don't think I would have watched that. That was a great purchase by us in the beginning of the year. Getting the NBA or getting 2K. We don't even play that game anymore. But I watch League Pass probably.
I watch League Pass every day.
Yeah, every night. I've probably been more in touch with the NBA this year than any other year. And I mean, 2K did a great job of marketing that, I guess, because I wouldn't have been as in touch with the NBA as I am this year. Jeez, nice English. All right, but let's move back to the Celtics. This is our team, first in the East, first in the NBA as of right now, as the day of this recording. And after the All-Star break, we've had 2 thrilling games, like absolute barn burners. We'll start off with our game against Indiana, in which the Celtics won in overtime. And this was a back-and-forth duel, high-scoring effect. Guys were scoring, hitting crazy shots all game. Starting with Miles Turner. Miles Turner went crazy. He scored 40 points this game. What do you hit? 6 threes or something?
8.
8 3. Yeah, geez.
His career high.
Yeah, he hit 8 threes, and he couldn't miss. And these were like kind of contested, like off the pick and pop.
Deep too.
Yeah, just an absolute thriller. I mean, Halliburton did his thing. Tyrese he's a dog. Like, he's a great player. Aaron Nesmith thought he was him. I mean, I don't know. You watched this game, right?
Yes.
Okay. Remember in overtime, like the Pacers were down 1, and there was like 40 seconds left. They swing it, and Nesmith takes a contested 3 with like 20 seconds left on the shot clock, and just absolutely bricks it. And the Celtics got the rebound, and that was the game, basically. Yeah,
because earlier in overtime, he had a layup, like a contested layup on Jason Tatum, and he like gave him like a friendly little like hi, and then Tatum just started going off in overtime.
Yeah, like Nesmith, he's whatever. Like it doesn't.
Sucks.
Yeah, it's not like Buddy had literally 9 points. He scored 4 more points than Neymar. I'm not good with the rookies this year, to be honest. I don't know.
Jordan Nwora? Jordan Nwora, former Buck.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah,
I mean, in this Pacers game, it was really up to, I'm going to say, our 3 biggest scorers, which are Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and off the bench, Malcolm Brogdon. And we've seen
Malcolm Brogdon revenge game.
Yes, exactly. I mean, could have seen it from a mile away. He finished the game with 24 points. He also added 5 rebounds and 7 assists. I mean, that's 6 man of the year type numbers. And I'm excited for, this fully healthy squad that we finally have, where Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White, Grant Williams, and I mean, I guess Sam Hauser, who got good minutes before All-Star break, and Cornette, that's our 5 off the bench. We have a full starting 5 off the bench, or not a starting 5, but we have a full rotation for every single position off the bench. And then you add someone like a Mike Muscala, Blake Griffin, or Peyton Pritchard in on any given night. Like, we are truly the deepest team in the league, and we have 2 starting point guards sitting on our bench. And I mean, they're still playing 37 minutes in this game. Brogdon did against the Pacers, and Derek White, he played 25 minutes and still added 17 points. These guys are going to produce for us. They love the role that they're in, and you know why? It's because we're the best team in basketball right now, and we've been in this tight little race, Stav, with Milwaukee, who's now won, I think, 13 games in a row, and even without Giannis right now, they're still winning basketball games, and Milwaukee's finding a way to, keep inching towards us, but Boston is playing keep away right now, and it was a big win against Indiana. And I mean, going on to this next game, it was a very, very big win against the 3 seed in the Philadelphia 76ers.
Another thrilling game. This was unbelievable. I probably watched the highlights in that game winner. Griff, you said it too in the group chat. I've watched this game winner probably on repeat for the past 3 days.
Still watching it today.
Yeah. Just one of the best moments of the season. We'll probably look back at this specific game at the end of the year and be like, damn, that was fucking awesome. And I'm right about the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm not worried about them. I mean, this clip could bite me in the ass, but that team just pisses me off so much, how they play basketball. Like, it's just not fun to watch on their end. Like, the Celtics shot 12 free throws and the 76ers shot 35. Like, it's just so annoying to watch. I mean, Embiid himself shot 18 free throws, and Harden shot 9. Like, those 2 guys, I mean, Embiid himself outshot the Celtics from the line by 6. And all he does is foul hunt, and it's really just not fun to watch. Like, when he's playing and not trying to foul hunt, he's awesome. Like, I literally haven't – he's hitting crazy fadeaway shots. He's a good shooter. He gets to his spot. He's physical. He's strong. He can finish at the rim, but he just foul hunts. And it's really – it pisses me off to watch, and I hate that I have to bring this up, but that was a main part of this game was Embiid foul hunting.
Yeah, and it's a main part of every single game that he plays in. Like, that is his thing. He gets to the line. Last year was more than anybody in the league, and this year he's probably up there with those numbers as well. He had 41 points in this game, 17 of those being from the line, Stav, and I mean, that's almost half of your scoring, and when you can get that many looks at the free throw line, you're going to have a good night. He does it every single night. That's why people like him at MVP, up there with Jokic and Tatum. And, they just play that game of watching them play basketball is like watching paint dry. I mean, it's boring. It's at moments, I mean, I guess you could say, like, when you're actually painting, like, that's when they're, like, fun, and James Harden is hitting step backs here and there, and Joel Embiid is doing his thing, like, working down in the post and stuff like that. But other than that, when you're watching the Philadelphia 76ers play basketball, they're shooting 30 to 35 free throws a game, and that's just how it's going to be. And the game is going to be a longer game typically than most other games because you're just watching them. I mean, it's almost like a baseball game that's 3 hours long and the score ends 1-0. And that's what it was here. It ended 110-107. And we've seen games. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Clippers game when they played the Kings, where the game ended like 167 to 166 in double overtime.
172 to 169.
I think it was a 1-point game. It was a 1-point game.
So I think it was 172 to 171. I know that they were in the 170s. I'll double check on that. But another thing with this game too, the 76ers were up 15, and they blew that in 5 minutes because of Al Horford. Al Horford came out and was playing like the best player in the NBA in that third quarter. He had a stretch. I think he went 11-0 by himself, and then he hit 4 threes in total in that third quarter. He finished this game with 15 points. Like, he's one of those – if he's playing well, if he's shooting well, this offense just looks unbelievable. The final score of the game was 176 to 175. I just pulled it up, which is unreal.
What did I say? Did I say
168
167, 166?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Regardless, but that game was double overtime and a scoring absolute onslaught. And I think that game took less time than this did because Joel Embiid loves the free throw line.
Exactly.
Like the clip that is almost as popular as the Joel Embiid, we haven't even talked about it, the non-buzzer beater, is one of him flopping at half court with Jaylen Brown. Like, if Jaylen Brown's that strong where he can push a 300-pound, 7-foot person over without even touching him, Jaylen Brown should start entering the world heavyweight lifting competitions. Like, Joel Embiid's such a loser.
But that's the style of basketball they play, and they like to slow the game down, and that's why James Harden is there as well. He's another guy that likes to get to the free throw line. They have guys like PJ Tucker who are willing to put their body on the line, and they slow up the game, and they make the game, their own, and they can try to control the pace. And Boston, I feel like Boston is in between that little, like, they like to play fast, but they like to be in their half court set. So it's, they take the chances that they get, but the Sixers really like lay back and let the game come to them. It's a style of basketball that when you're winning, you're like, okay, we're watching it. But when your team's putting up 110 a night and you're losing games 130 to 110 in this modern day NBA, it's going to come back to bite you. But thank God that team has Joel Embiid on their team. But back to the good guys, the boys in green. Big game tonight at the night of this recording, Monday night against the New York Knicks, who are on a 5-game win streak, Stav. It looks like no Jaylen Brown tonight, and it also looks like Derek White may be out tonight. So it looks like maybe a Brogdon starting night. Maybe we see Sam Hauser in the starting mix, or Grant Williams fills in at some spot on that team. But looking at this, we've won 3 in a row. The Knicks, who are now the 6th seed and hanging into that playoff spot, which is the final playoff spot because of the play-in. This is a team that's been pretty hot in the Knicks, and going to MSG, Boston's favored by 2.5. And if you want to throw out a little prediction for tonight, what are you thinking, Stav?
I think it's going to be a high-scoring bout, if I'm being honest. I think both teams are going to be ready to play, and the Celtics in the second half have really been taken 2 heavyweight punches to the face and dealt and like handled it, survived the punch and punched back and knocked out their opponent. And I don't see the Celtics losing this game, to be honest. The last time we faced the Knicks, they beat us in kind of a heartbreaking fashion where Jaylen Brown missed 2 clutch free throws at the end. I think that game went into overtime. Yes, it went into overtime.
Yes.
It's one of those tough games where we should have won. And I think that the Celtics team takes bad losses to heart. And I know Jaylen Brown's out tonight, but the Celtics are the best road team in the NBA. They're 24-7 on the road, which is absolutely unbelievable. Like they're 22 and 10 at home, 24-7 on the road, I believe. And just the Garden is where stars come out to play, right? I expected Jason Tatum onslaught tonight. Yeah, he did go off in that Pacers game, and he did hit the game winner against Philly. Big-time players make big-time plays, but he really hasn't shot the ball well after the All-Star break. He hasn't really played well up to his standards. He's been turning the ball over. He's been shooting poorly from 3. So I'm expecting him to have a really big rebound performance tonight. I expect the Celtics to win 125 to 117.
Okay. So interesting. I got some numbers up here, and obviously this episode's gonna come out after the fact. After this game is gonna be coming out on Tuesday. But the series, season series is tied 1-1. The Celtics got the first game back in November. They won 133 to 118 at MSG. After that, like you said, Stav, they lost a close one, 120 to 117 at home. So this is game 3 of the series. The over is set at 223.5. Looking at those 2 other games that they played, the over has been smashed in both of those. So I love the over tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I also love the Celtics tonight at MSG. Like you said, the stars come out, and Julius Randle has been playing great basketball. So whatever Julius Randle's line is at, I like that as well. I like those 3 picks. I love Boston tonight. The over tonight. I mean, this is actually genuinely what I will be putting money on tonight.
Yeah.
Boston, the over for sure will be parlayed, and I'll probably sprinkle a little bit on Julius Randle, points, rebounds, and assists. I don't know what the number is at, but he's been balling out lately. So I love it. And I think that this is going to be a very big game. I'm glad that I get to watch it on my local television station, NBC Sports Boston, because there's no place like home. And I actually want to get your take on this before we move on to a little bit of college ball. Do you prefer a nationally televised game like an ESPN game or a TNT game, or do you like watching Scal?
It depends, in my opinion. If it's like a Sunday afternoon game, it's a big game, like the Celtics and Lakers. I want to see Mike Breen calling that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to see if it's like a Saturday night prime time game, Friday night, something like that. You know what I mean? Big time game against the Warriors or the Bucks, something. I love to see like Mike Green and company calling the game. But for every other game, you got to go with the hometown guys. You know, you listen to a Celtics game to hear Celtics talk. Because every time it's a nationally broadcasted game, each fan base is like, "Oh, these guys are biased against my team," and whatever they may say. But you know, when you get the hometown broadcast, that it's going to be a homer broadcast, and yeah, it really depends, in my opinion. I mean, I love both broadcasts. Mike Green's my favorite announcer, but so this one is locally broadcasted, right? It's not yeah. So I'm excited to watch it. It's like I said, it's a Monday night game. Although it is against the Knicks, I'm glad that it's a hometown crew.
Yeah, definitely. I like that take as well. It really depends on the moment, but a game like this where, I mean, I would call this a rivalry, a long-time rivalry. Obviously, we're both in the Atlantic, and the Knicks, I mean, have never really had our number, especially in our recent memory. But, you know, it's always fun to go beat the Knicks at MSG, and we're going to do that again tonight. So the C's have stayed hot. Hopefully they continue to stay hot. Like I said, Milwaukee, who I actually fact-checked, 14 wins in a row, not 13. I mean, they're red hot, and when Giannis comes back, it's going to continue, and that's just something. The Celtics can't coast throughout the rest of the season. Just an outlook at this season, or at the rest of the season, they don't play the easiest schedule, and they have like this little stretch where they play the Knicks, the Cavs, the Nets, and then the Knicks, and then the Cavs again, where, you know, those are seeing the same 3 teams in a 5-game span. You're due for one of those little slip-up games, and maybe New York gets the best of you a week or at the end, or a week from now on Sunday, and, you know, you go to Cleveland, and after that, you're playing Damian Lillard at the TD Garden. So it's really not that easy of an end to the season, but we have a few of those games like Houston, like Indiana, like San Antonio, where we should be getting those wins. It's really just from here on out about winning the games that we should win, and we're going to be in a place to succeed. And I like our chances this year. I like the coaches. I would argue that coaching this year has been better than it was in the past few years, and specifically to compare, I would say it's better than it was last year. And I mean, last year we saw how far our coach took us. So, you know, long season ahead still, but we are past the All-Star break. But, you know, how about we talk about a season coming to an end, Stav? Conference tournaments are starting in mid-majors, and I mean, it's go time here. And, you know, we had a few big games on Saturday, Stav. It was a great weekend of college basketball. College basketball has been hitting different this year. It's been all over the place. Teams are losing, like Virginia losing to my Tar Heels, which I mentioned on the intro. You know, big games, teams that are on the cusp, who are maybe a first 4 out type of team, or maybe on the bubble like UNC, getting big wins, getting big Sector 1 wins. And then you have a team like Bama, who's the 2 seed, who, God forbid, we talk about Alabama right now, but if they stay fully intact as a team, this is my pick to win March Madness. They're going to win it. I have no other like And specifically, I'm talking about if they keep Brandon Miller. If Brandon Miller continues to play basketball for Alabama, they're going to win March Madness.
I mean, I don't hate that pick at all. And we've seen, obviously, what's happened in Alabama, all the controversy, not even controversy. There was a murder that took place, and there's a lot of talk in the basketball team. One of the players is already arrested. I believe, I don't want to misspeak, but
was at least kicked off the team. He was at least kicked off the team.
Yep. And Brandon Miller's name has been circled around in investigations, whatever. I don't want to get into details of the ongoing murder investigation, but ever since this controversy has hit the team and ever since their name has been put in the spotlight in a negative way, Brandon Miller has really shown up for this team, and he's really doing his best to pull them out of the negative spotlight. Where against South Carolina the other night, I think it was Tuesday night or Wednesday night, one of those nights, he scored 41 points and carried them essentially. And then we saw it on Saturday. He scored another 24 points. He's just an absolute stud. He's one of the best players in college basketball. An absolute treat to watch, as we say. And this team, they're taking punches. They're the team to beat in the SEC right now. Obviously, they're the second-ranked team in the entire nation. And they're feeling the punches. They're taking them, and they're coming out victorious. You know, in my opinion, especially down the stretch in the end of the year, when you have so much negative spotlight on you, it doesn't matter how much you win by. As long as you're winning these tough road games, you're a good team in my opinion.
And Arkansas is a good team. If you're talking about this game on Saturday against Arkansas, I mean, we saw them last year. We saw them the year before with Moses Moody. This is a school that has revived their program. And I wish I could remember the name of Arkansas's coach. He's a very well-known coach. Bad journalism straight up, but I mean, he's brought this team back, and they've been good. They're sitting at 19-10 right now, and they had a good upset slate against Bama, and Bama held on. That was a big win for them.
100%. And they're just continuing to win. I don't think that there's going to be anyone who really challenges them in the SEC tournament. I expect them to win. I expect them to be a 1 seed in the March Madness tournament. And college basketball, how I look at it, ever since football ended, it's delivered every single weekend. We've had some great games. We've had some great matchups. We've had some upsets. And this weekend, it really did feel like a March Madness slate with how many buzzer beaters we saw, with how many big upsets we saw. How many ranked teams did we see lose this weekend? 6, 7, or something like that? Where that just feels like a March Madness type a stat to bring up. So,
and I would even say, Stav, I would even say that teams, you know, if you want to talk about games that feel like March Madness, teams that should be winning these games are the teams that are hitting buzzer beaters or, you know, last second free throws like TCU against Texas Tech on Saturday. TCU, who was on the road, the 24th ranked team in the nation, coming back and solidifying the game with those 2 free throws to win the game by 1 point. That's a very big win. And if you want to talk about teams that are on the cusp of still being ranked and kind of screwing over their rankings, how about Texas A&M losing to Mississippi State? Iowa State losing at home to Oklahoma was a terrible beat. And then I would say the biggest game of the weekend, the Big East of which we're going to be paying a lot of attention to, Creighton falling down to Villanova. In Villanova, I mean, this is the worst season we've seen Villanova have in the past 10 years. They come back, they beat a tough Creighton team, and I'd be scared to look at Villanova in the Big East tournament. The Big East is, I mean, at all times, no matter what, you know, you have Providence, you have Creighton, you have Marquette, you have Xavier, but Villanova is the blue blood of the Big East, right? Villanova is the team that's been doing it for the past few years. So when you get a big win like that, that's going to help out those kids a lot. And at the end of the day, all you have to do is win your conference tournament and you're in March Madness. So I would look out for Villanova, especially once it comes time to meet up at the MSG. And I mean, the Big East is awesome. UConn got a big win against St. John's, but that wasn't going to be a given. It looked like St. John's was fighting back. St. John's had some fighting them all year. If you want to talk all Big East, Marquette beat DePaul by 6. And, you know, Marquette's at the top of the Big East right now, I would say, at 23-6. They're the best team record-wise in the Big East, and they're also the best team ranking-wise, sitting at the 10th seed in the nation. They need to keep getting wins like this, kind of comparing it to Alabama. Marquette is the top dog in this conference. They need to keep getting those wins. Every single game from here on out for Marquette is considered a trap game. It's got to be a given. But I mean, a fantastic weekend. You know how much I love college basketball. My best game of the weekend, and this is with no bias because it's not the North Carolina game, Indiana beating Purdue at Purdue. I mean, I need to bring up that clip from the last time we talked about their game on rivalry weekend when Indiana beat them. I told them, or I said, Indiana's going to beat them again later in the season at Purdue, and that's going to be the result of Purdue's fall off. So the fall off starts right now for Purdue.
I think the last time we talked college hoops in depth like this was when I was like, I don't trust Purdue. I don't trust Purdue to make a run in the tournament. I don't trust them kind of for the rest of the season. And ever since then, they're on a skid. Like teams in college basketball that have one dominant player, essentially. Let me rephrase this. Everything revolves through Zach Edey. He's an excellent player, but when the games matter, when you're playing an excellent or a really good, I don't want to call excellent, but when you're playing a really good Indiana team, who has your number essentially now, we can officially say that the game is really possession by possession. Everything matters, and when you have Zach Edey off the bench, or when he's on the bench, or he's not in the game, and they need to figure out another way to score, this team is struggling. Although they are ranked 5th in the nation, they're on a slide right now. And Zach Edey, he's a hell of a player, but what are you going to do come tournament time when he's getting double teamed and you're making the other guys take shots on this team?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it wasn't just this loss to Indiana. It was a loss to Maryland. It was a loss to Northwestern. And then you look back at it and they've lost, 4 out of their last 6. And before that, they went on their big run that, kind of solidified their spot as a top dog in college basketball. And I mean, you're going to keep sliding. There's no way that they continue to maintain this 24-5 figure that they have first in the Big Ten, which we've been talking about. The Big Ten is very competitive this year, and a lot of teams can beat this team. And it's exactly to the point that all they have is Zach Edey. I mean, they move off the ball quite well. They just don't actually have the guys that, in my opinion, are national championship like material. They don't have a supporting cast around Zach Edey like a lot of these other guys, like Brandon Miller has around him at Bama. Like a lot of other teams have. Zach Edey is truly the only option on this team at the end of the day. And you're down 3 with 3 seconds left. You have, who's shooting that 3-pointer? You have maybe Fletcher Lawyer, who's a 6'4" guard from Fort Wayne, Indiana, averaging 12 points a game. That's not somebody that I want shooting that ball. And if they find themselves in a hole in the tournament, and this is just the conference tournament, I don't even want to talk about March Madness with this team yet. If they find themselves in the hole, and this could be early in the Big Ten tournament, maybe against a team like Maryland or something like that, I can't see themselves digging themselves out. I just think that they don't have what it takes. I don't think that the coaching is too great over at Purdue either. They just have that big boy who's been there for a few years now. He's mastered that offense. He's mastered that coaching system. And I'm not trying to throw any slack on him. He's the only reason why they are the number 5 seed team in the nation right now.
You want my bold take for this Purdue team? I think they're a first or second round exit in March Madness. I don't see them going far at all. And I think I stated this last time too. I'm comparing this team to the DeAndre Ayton Arizona team. They had a really good regular season, running everything through DeAndre Ayton, but come tournament time, they got upset in the first round. And I expect a similar fate for this Purdue team. I do not see them competing against some of the top teams in the nation, and I don't see them competing against a team that can shoot the 3-ball. And if we're being honest, if some of these mid-major teams that are coming into the tournament hot, one of the lower end seeds, because we got to expect that Purdue is going to be a 1 or 2 seed, and when it's all said and done, lowest 3. I could see him losing in the first round to 16th. I don't want to say 16th seed because that's only happened once in the history of the tournament, but they could lose to a what is it? What would it be? A 13th seed, right? Three
Yeah,
versus
they could lose to.
yeah,
Yeah,
or 4 versus 13. So it would be whatever it is, right? I could see them losing to a team. If that team is hot shooting the ball, I don't see Purdue, like you said, coming out of that hole. Because their offense is slow paced, and that's just not how college basketball is being played right now. Essentially, if you can't shoot the three ball, and if you're running everything through the post with only one player, it's really not good.
yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up DeAndre Ayton's Arizona team, because Arizona took a tough loss on Saturday to Arizona State in a rivalry game once as well. And the season's coming to an end, and Arizona's kind of have a little easy path, I would say, ever since they played UCLA on January 21st and beat them in a game that they completely had control of at home. Since then, they've played teams like Washington State, Washington, Oregon State, Cal. They lost to Stanford, which was crazy. But people were looking at the last 3 games of the season for them. This has been kind of the make or break for them, and they're the 8th seed in the nation right now, 24-5. This is another team where, you could even compare to Purdue as well. Losing to Arizona State. Now you have to go play USC at USC, and they're not ranked, but they're around 18-10 or something. I think they're 18-10 or 17-11, something like that. And then UCLA at the end of the season. The last 2 games you play USC, and then the 4th seed in the nation and Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez at UCLA. If they lose these next 2 games, that could really affect their standing in the Pac-12. Right now they sit second, obviously behind the Bruins. And this is another team that we're looking at. Not a lot of depth. They control the game very well. They have a lot of size, a lot of size at Arizona. They get a lot of rebounds. They slow the game down when they beat those good teams. When they have those Sector 1 wins, it always seems to be a lower scoring game, unless it was earlier in the season, like a San Diego State game or the Creighton game that they had. But looking at their win against UCLA, it was 58-52. They barely broke 100. Obviously, the under was smashed in that game. Same thing with Tennessee, 75-70. It was a bit better, but you're not seeing these games in the 80s over in Arizona against these big games. I could see UCLA, blowing them out next Saturday to end the season, and that is a terrible way to start conference tournament. We haven't talked too much about the Pac-12, but UCLA has been kind of running it the whole time, and Arizona has kind of felt like the little brother this year that kind of is making his way up. And I think UCLA on next Saturday, or this Saturday actually, takes them down and kind of shows them who's boss, and UCLA ends up winning the tournament. UCLA is going to be a 1 seed in March Madness as well.
Yeah, UCLA. We talk about them all the time as that team that has the veteran leadership, and that's not an underrated thing to have in college basketball when you have guys that have been there and done it.
Apparently, unless you're the Tar Heels, just doesn't happen. I guess.
That doesn't make much sense to me. We'll get into that soon, but this UCLA team, they're well coached. They play well together. They have really good chemistry, and they know what it takes. So that they will probably be a 1 seed by the end of the season. They're a great team. They're fun to watch, and I can see them totally making a run. So what have we declared? 2 1 seeds right now: Alabama and UCLA.
Yes. All right, and Houston.
Houston, yeah, we hate Houston, but
Houston.
Yeah, they're not.
I'm sorry that you lost 2 games because you play against Wichita State, and that's like your toughest game. Yeah. Wichita State is actually I would argue that Gonzaga plays a tougher conference schedule than Houston. I would argue that you play St. Mary's, you play San Fran, you play UC Santa Barbara, who is probably like the temple of the West Coast Conference, which probably nobody understood what I'm saying right now, but basically what I'm trying to say is Houston is overrated, and they would be good as an ACC team. I'm not saying that they're a bad team. They're obviously number 2 in the nation for a reason, but they would have a lot of trouble in the ACC. You got to play Duke, you got to play UNC, you got to play Virginia, you got to play these blue bloods, you got to play everybody. And Houston doesn't have to do that right now. That's why they're the number 2 seed, and that's very fraudulent when you don't have a big test going into March. And Houston's made the Final Four a couple of times, and we've noticed once you get to that big game and you're playing in a football stadium, these kids are used to playing kids that were recruited locally by, Tulane to go play basketball, and they're the worst team in the nation. And, you're just getting ran up and down by Houston, a great rebounding team. But, I just don't trust Houston at all. They do have a 1 seed, though, because they won't lose the rest of the season.
Yeah, so we have Houston, Alabama, UCLA, and I'll put Kansas as the last 1 seed.
I'm glad you said that. That was also my pick.
That was, for those who don't know, that was my team last year who I picked to win it all. With the law of averages, I'm not going to pick them to win again. I don't think, how many teams have gone back to back? I don't think very few, if any.
There has been a couple, but none in our lifetime.
Yeah,
unless
let's see. But the Kansas Jayhawks are playing good basketball as of right now. They've lost some important conference games. They're 12-4 in the Big 12. That could be a little bit better, especially for a 1 seed. The Big 12 is competitive this year.
The Big 12 is very competitive this year.
How many teams you got ranked in the top 10 in the Big 12? You have
Baylor's in there. Texas was just in there.
Kansas State's just out of it. They're like the 14th.
Yeah.
So it's very competitive.
But a ton of teams are ranked.
I'm sorry? And Iowa State.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's a very...
So that's all the ranked teams in the Big 12.
That is all of them officially. But no, you're right. Texas still in the top 10. They're the 9 seed, and Kansas is the first in terms of conference standings. And I would say that, there's a lot of competitive conferences this year. I would say that at the peak of those is the Big 12. And it's, in my opinion, it's down to Kansas and Baylor. And I like Kansas winning that as well. And Bama's my pick to win the national championship, and Kansas is going to be the team that's playing them, coming from the opposite side. If you want this is my pre-conference tournament take. It's Kansas and it's Bama in the national championship, officially locked in.
Kansas, Bama national?
There's no change in my mind. I know I do love Marquette, but I don't think Marquette has it in them this year. That's my official pick for March Madness. But Kansas, you don't want to pick a team to win it twice in a year, or twice back-to-back in 2 years. It's going to be obviously very difficult. They're the team that everybody's looking for to beat, and I just don't think anybody can beat them right now. Jalen Wilson is a guy that's been there for a few years, and they finally have a supporting cast. Grady Dick, the freshman's been coming through for them in big moments, been hitting big shots. They have 2, 3, maybe even 4 guys on that team that I would trust taking a big shot in a big moment. And that's what we look for in March Madness. So they got a lot of clutch players over there. They score a lot of points and they play good defense. And this past Saturday, they were wearing their 100th anniversary uniforms. I don't know if you saw them, Stav. They were wearing like a white top, but there was no blue, no red. It was just white and black, but the shorts were black. I would say officially, if you were to match jerseys, like you remember the Pacers, how they used to wear their throwback hickories, terrible uniforms. I used to think that you have to wear the same same color shorts than jersey. Kansas proved me wrong last Saturday with the uniforms that they wore. And those uniforms are a direct representation of the way that they play basketball. It's clean, it's smooth. It's just beautiful. Everything that Kansas has done this year has been great. They've been a great basketball team, and they're a team to look out for. They're officially my national championship losers as of right now.
Hey, it's a good take. Kansas has, we talk about it all the time. They got some studs on that team. Grady Dick, Jalen Wilson, those guys, they're a well-coached team, as we've said. By the way, it's Eric Musselman, the head coach of Arkansas.
Yes, Musselman. That's right.
But yeah, I'm really excited just in general to see how this season unravels. What we see right now in this top 25, it's going to look very different a week from now, and it's going to look very different by the time the tournament rolls around too. We're going to see a lot of upsets, and we're going to see a lot of teams get hot at the right time.
And don't let UNC beat Florida State and then beat Duke going into the conference tournament.
Yeah.
I am being super. You do not want to see that team get hot. And I just want to talk real quick about their game, actually, because we didn't really talk about it. We just said that they won, and obviously they did 71-63, a big win. And how about, I mean, the guy that we've been kicking in the ass all season, Pete Nance, dropping 22 points. Finally, this is the first time I've actually seen Pete Nance and been happy seeing him play basketball. He went 4 for 4 from behind the 3-point line in a game where Caleb Love only scores 10 points. Very insufficiently 2 for 12 from the field, which happens with Caleb Love here and there. That's exactly, last year at this time, that's when Brady Manick stepped up, and Pete Nance is in that position to do the same, if not Puff Johnson, who still had 8 off the bench and grabbed some boards. And, they have these guys where I would be very, very nervous to see them in the ACC tournament in Greensboro, North Carolina, going down the stretch. You beat the best team in the ACC, and you open up a lot of eyes. The big test is going to be the Blue Devils to end off the season. That will be, I'm going to say, the official tell if we make the tournament or not is if we beat Duke on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even a crazy thing to say either. This North Carolina Tar Heels team, when they can hit the 3-ball, they're so much more dangerous. You look at their last few losses, or their last few games rather, especially like against Notre Dame, right? They were abysmal from beyond the arc. I don't have the exact stat up, but they were just abysmal. And why they lost to Duke is because they couldn't effectively hit the 3-ball, especially down the stretch. They had opportunities, open threes. I'm not saying contested ones, open threes. And what's the difference in this game? You have Pete Nance's 4 for 4 from 3. They won by 8. So that's pretty much the difference right there. I mean, although 4 times 3 is 12, I understand. But when you have guys who are shooting the 3-ball efficiently and who are taking a volume amount of shots, I know Caleb Love went 1 for 8 from beyond the arc, and he didn't really have a great game, went 2 of 12. But when the other guys are hitting the 3-ball, like RJ Davis went 2 of 4, Leaky Black went 1 of 2, and they're taking high quality shots. Puff Johnson off the bench went 2 of 3 from 3. When they're hitting the threes, this team is a lot more dangerous. In exactly what you said, I wouldn't want to see them. Don't let them get hot from beyond the arc.
Yeah, exactly. And, regular seasons are wrapping up this week. And as I said, there's a few of the mid-majors that have already began conference play. It all comes down to this week for a team like UNC, who's sitting at 18-11 and, have those big wins against ranked teams. They're on the bubble. After beating Virginia, people had them as a first 4-out type of team, but after beating Virginia, it's a whole new look where they could sneak in as a 10 seed or an 11 seed, and they're playing a 5 or a 6, and that's the perfect situation for them. And it's kind of around where they were last year, where you let one of those teams in and you give them a bad seed. You give them a bad seeding, going into March Madness, they take it disrespectfully. And after beating a team like Duke, if this happens, it's kind of the perfect storm, where last season we saw the same thing. They didn't get in with a great seed, and look where they ended up. And I'm not saying that they could do the same thing, or I'm not saying that they're going to do the same thing, but they very much so could.
Yeah, exactly. And Virginia has had 2 bad losses. I mean, let's talk about the other.
And even their wins, they haven't looked good.
Exactly. I mean, we can talk about the most recent loss, like we just said, but they lost to BC last week. It was a really bad game. They scored 48 points. They barely beat Notre Dame. They barely beat Louisville.
Louisville, the worst team in the ACC, by the way.
Yeah, they beat them by 3. They lost to Virginia Tech. So this team, they're slowing down at the wrong time. Like we like to say, teams getting hot at the right time. They're doing the exact opposite. So they've lost back to back. They have Clemson tomorrow night.
Who will play them tough? Them tough?
100%. And then they should win the last game of the year against Louisville. I mean, but that's a should. They beat them by 3 last time. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and Virginia, who fell out of the top 10 this week, they're now at 13. They went from 6 to 13 after dropping both their games this past week. Like you said, I I guess real quick, their game against Boston College, I actually watched that game too. The Langford brothers had a good game. Boston College is another team that they kind of did this last year. They won a couple of games in the ACC tournament. They're not a team that's going to make they're not going to make it to the NCAA tournament, but I would look out for them if they go up in an early round against like a Virginia or a Duke or a team like that. They could, ruin their tournament and ruin their seed in March Madness. There's a lot of teams throughout those conferences like that, like BC. And I would say, in the Big East, I'm trying to think of a few teams. Like there are teams, St. John's is one of them that could just absolutely tank your season. And I would be nervous, going into the ACC tournament, looking at a team like BC who is very experienced. They had a new coach, and he's not really much of a new coach anymore. I think the first graduating class for him is this year, so he's 3 or 4 years into the system, and they play well under him. And the ACC tournament's going to be very, very fun to watch. The Big 12 is very packed this year. The Big East is always fun, and the SEC, I feel like, has the top dog in Alabama. That's really all I have for the rest of college basketball today.
All right. My last note I want to talk about, you already gave us your team who you would expect to really win it all. You said Alabama and Kansas. Those are your two teams. We already went through all of our 1C predictions. But give me a team who's maybe at the bottom of the top 25 that you expect to make a run and do some damage in the tournament. I got mine and might surprise you.
Okay. Looking at a team like, I even want to say UNC. If they beat Duke on Saturday, I could easily see them making a little run in the tournament. If not, I would look towards a Big East team. And if we want to talk about an unranked team specifically, let me think for a second. If we want to talk about an unranked team specifically, a team that just fell out of the rankings is Creighton, who took a tough loss on Saturday. And to Villanova, like I said. Before that, they lost to 10 seed Marquette by 2 points. They finished the season against Georgetown, the worst team in the Big East, and then against DePaul, which I think is the third worst team in the Big East. They have a couple of games to get back up there. They have great shooting. They play good defense. They grab rebounds. Their defense on the perimeter isn't that great because, they have just straight shooters at the point guard and the 2 guard. But like I said, you score a lot of points once you get into March. You go a long way. So I think that Creighton could be due for a Sweet 16 run, maybe even an Elite 8 run.
Yeah, and it's a good pick. But I'm going to go for my surprise team. I'm going to say a ranked team. The San Diego State Aztecs. I love this team. This team, they play stifling defense. They force turnovers. Really, the downfall of this team is they also turn over the ball, which is kind of funny, but they get them right back. This is a very balanced team, a well-coached team that really prides themselves on the defensive end of the floor. They're dominant in the Mountain West, although the Mountain West isn't really much of a competition this year. There's still some names in that conference, and San Diego State just running away with it. They just come up with a huge win on the road against New Mexico State, which ended in a buzzer beater. I think it was the third buzzer beater we saw on Saturday. The San Diego State team, they play defense. They pride themselves on that end of the floor. It's a very balanced scoring attack. Like if you look at their per game stats, you have Pat Bradley who's averaging 13, Trevor is averaging 10, Lamont Butler is averaging 9. You go down this list. It's very balanced, right? And sometimes teams like this who have a very balanced scoring attack are the most difficult teams to face in March Madness. A lot of teams are like, okay, we need one guy to stand out and dominate. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you have a very balanced attack, you take out one guy, another guy's just going to step right up and take over that guy's job. So if they play like the defense that we expect them to play, they average 7.5 steals a game and 3.5 blocks a game. They do their job on the defensive end and they get it done on the offensive end.
Yeah, and that's a good pick because looking at the Mountain West, as you said, as long as they get through that tournament, Stav, and they win it as they rightfully should, they're going to get a good seeding. They're going to get, not an easy path, but an easier path than they would if they were to obviously drop down a game. Because if you drop a game against a team like like a Fresno State or Colorado State, it's not a good look for you. So I feel like as long as San Diego State wins out, which, like I said, they should, because after the next 2 games, it's just the conference tournament. They're going to be put in a very good spot. They're going to be a 5-loss team at that point. And, it's a good run from out there because, like you said, Stav, they're a very good defensive team. Defense goes a long way. They can rebound the ball. They force turnovers. They just have to limit that on the other side of the ball. That's a great pick.
Yeah. And I think that just about wraps it up for college basketball. Let's talk some baseball. I mean, I want to preface this by saying baseball is probably our biggest sport when we talk about like how much we like it as a podcast. I know you work for the Woo Sox, the Red Sox. We're both 162 guys. I could talk Red Sox baseball. We could fill up this show for 3 hours. We're not going to do that, but let's preface it by saying that. And let's first, before we talk about the Red Sox, let's talk about the rule changes, because this is a very big topic among sports in general, all across the board. Do we like the pitch clock?
Yes, I do. Now, I think that once every player kind of indulges it, and we're in pretty much the first week of play. I think once everybody understands like the rules, the official rules, and everything is clearly communicated, we're not going to see as many skids like this. Like, yesterday, Masataka Yoshida stepped into the box a second too late. They gave him an 0-1 count. He didn't even notice. By the time he struck out, he thought it was a 1-2 count. And, I mean, it was a 1-2 count the pitch before. He looked at a ball right down the middle. So he had clearly no idea until he was called out. Once the rules are like clearly stated, and they've been heavily enforcing them, obviously, which is what you have to do in spring training so that like it's clearly understood. I think that a lot less people will be mad, but at the end of the day, games are ending in 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 40 minutes. And I've watched every single spring training game for at least 5-6 innings of each game, and I've been loving the pace of play. I think that the pitch clock is a good introduction. If we want to talk about rule changes or just changes in that sense, the one that's thrown me off the most, and this might be a curveball, is the size of the bases. The bases are massive. And it's like looking at the bases, they just don't look proportionate to the field the way that the old ones did, because they are truly massive. Obviously it's for safety and it really doesn't affect the game too much, but I feel like they look funky out there. I don't know if that's like a weird thing that I noticed.
It's like disproportionate.
It like just doesn't look right.
Yeah, it'll take a little bit to get used to, but I really do like the angle that the MLB is approaching with this, right? They're really making an effort to target pace of play, because this has been a discussion for years, right? And they're putting it into play, and the umps are being extreme with it now, and that's what you're supposed to do. And I like to say the winners and losers of everything, or who I'm buying stock in, rather. I'm buying stock in all the young guys that have played in AAA last year.
Yes.
They're used to this. They're used to this. And especially early in the year, when you got batters who are ready, and you have pitchers who are ready to pitch fast, and they are used to that. This is who I'm excited to watch. Guys like Brian Bayo, who went through it for a majority of last season. Guys who were in rehab starts, for example, Tristan Cassis, who was a minor leaguer for a majority of last year. So I'm excited to see these guys perform in the MLB, especially this year. Guys who I'm not buying stock in, or who I'm selling my shares of, velocity pitchers. I expect the velocity to be down this year. I expect pitchers who really, the pitchers who throw for crazy velocity are usually the ones who take longer on the mound. I'm not saying that they're going to drop 10 miles an hour or whatever, but I don't think we're going to see the frequency of pitchers throwing 100 miles an hour as we have in the past.
They just don't have enough time to like completely go through that. Yeah, I mean, you're throwing 2 pitches every 20 seconds, so you don't have that time to kind of regain and collect. And I hope that doesn't lead to injury, but obviously there's like the pitch count, all that, and no matter what, they're still going to be pitching the same amount. Hopefully, it's just, those couple extra seconds or in some case minutes. I saw a video earlier today on TikTok. It was like, how many times can Jose Altuve hit an inside the parker before? Well, I forget what it was, but before it was like someone threw a pitch in like the ALDS in like 2017 and took him like 3.5 minutes to throw a pitch. And Jose Altuve hit like 9 inside the park home runs.
Exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, although that is an extreme example of what that can happen, and the MLB is aiming to get rid of that. And there have been other examples, not as extreme, but where a pitcher takes 2 minutes between pitches. And that's like 6 TikTok videos. And the attention span of the kids, essentially, who they're trying to make their target audience, because baseball fans right now, it's an older sport, right? I don't want to say it's a dying breed, but the diehard 162 guys, it's an older. If you have to take the average sample size of or if you go through the sample size of baseball fans, the average age is probably around in the 40s, if I had to say so. And they're trying to lower that, and they're trying to attract the younger kids so baseball can stay popular forever, essentially. And I think that they're taking a right step in the direction.
Yeah, and someone who's going to excel, if we want to talk about a specific player, a pitcher who's going to excel, in my opinion, due to this pitch clock, is going to be Max Scherzer. We saw clips of him yesterday in his first start. Excuse me. He was, giving his own pitches. He had his own pitch column on his glove. I don't know if you saw that, but he was literally telling the catcher what pitch he was going to throw. Nobody was telling him what to do. He was telling them. And he was just getting up there, throwing the ball, throwing strikes, strike after strike, just getting back on the mound. And in his first inning, he went 1, 2, 3, and he had a 3-pitch strikeout. It took 27 seconds. A plate appearance that was 27 seconds long to end the first inning. It speeds up the game. Max Scherzer is going to win the Cy Young this year. You got to put a future on it, because he's like one of those weird guys where I feel like if you switch something like that, he's going to succeed. And I'd look at like a Greinke who is struggling to find a home. I feel like he's going to do good with the rule change. There's these guys, and if Bauer ever finds a deal, I feel like he's one of those guys as well. Like just those weirdos that are pitchers, they like to work around those rules and stuff like that. And I would be dumb to say that Max Scherzer isn't one of the best pitchers in baseball, and this helps him out a lot because he's not a guy that throws 102 miles per hour, but he has some velocity, and he has some like steady velocity where every pitch there's a little bit of whip on it. And I like him a lot this year. But obviously I want to talk a lot about our Red Sox today, and I want to give it a couple of weeks. A lot of these guys are leaving for the World Baseball Classic, so it's going to be kind of hard to get a good look at them. One of those guys being Masataka Yoshida, who just played his final game before heading over to start training for the World Baseball Classic. He was leading off today on the day of this recording. We've seen him bat in the middle of the order. People are saying he's a 3 or 4 kind of guy. We have a lot of lefties on this team as well, if I want to keep going. But Stav, just, as a quick look, because Masataka Yoshida, I would say, is the most interesting pickup we had this past offseason. Do you like him after watching the first couple of games, and where do you like him at batting in the order?
I'll answer your questions in reverse order. I like him batting leadoff. I think all the entire story throughout spring training up to this point is how surprised the Red Sox were with the pop in his bat. And he has a beautiful swing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very fundamentally sound. He has a beautiful swing, and he has pop. The play that sticks out to me, I know he struck out twice today, but where it was a beautiful swing. He got a double that hit off the base of the wall on right. Yeah,
on right field. Yep,
that was his first swing. Yeah, so I think that he's very patient at the plate as well. He's not. I don't like to make predictions solely based off of spring training, because we see guys succeed in spring training who suck in the regular season, and reverse where they suck and then succeed. So I'm excited to see what Yoshida has to bring, because he's definitely going to be an opening day starter. And I do think that he's going to be. We'll get into our lineup predictions. I do think he will be the leadoff batter come opening day.
That's very fair, and I love the fact that he is representing Japan in the World Baseball Classic, because a lot of these guys say, when this tournament comes around, you kind of have a career year after that, because you start off the summer in a different environment where you're competitive throughout the whole summer. You bring that into the regular season and you're already warmed up. You're not playing those little spring training games where you're in there for 1 AB, 2 ABs a day. Like he's going to be getting 3, 4 ABs, and he's going to be batting third or fourth for this Japanese squad, where then he comes back and like you said, I mean, he was getting comparisons to another left fielder that we had a few years ago. He's one of those guys that could start off a game with a spark, right? And he could maybe blast one over that right field wall at times, or, he could get on base with a double, something like that. He has great pop in his bat. We only saw that double for him from hits, and his 2 ABs today, he was working the count a little bit, nothing too special, but he's looked pretty promising, I would say, in my opinion, for just the few at-bats that we've seen him. That double looked great. His form on a swing looks great. His legs are tree trunks. He's he's a monster. Hopefully that's what we need for him. And we haven't dropped a game in the Grapefruit League, so shout out to us, 2-0. The best team in baseball right now. You could argue. But no, for real. We have guys, like I said, I threw out Bobby Dalbec's name, who had a double yesterday, along with a home run yesterday, and then another double today. I don't like him, don't care about Bobby Dalbec, but he's fighting for his life right now, right? And that could be something that we see. We saw him go on those little runs, not last year. I feel like last year he had a very bad year, but the year before that, he had like the run where, he's starting to get some pop in his bat. He was getting it over the fence. He was hitting doubles. Hopefully we can get him back to there, because he's a guy that, could play behind maybe a Tristan Casas and fill in on days at third base for Rafi as well. And hopefully maybe Bobby Dalbec brings a little bit of production. But like you said, Stav, it's always hard to overreact to spring training, because Bobby Dalbec's the perfect example every single year. I don't know if he's just made to live in Florida or what it is, but he performs down in Fort Myers, and then we bring him up to Boston. And I mean, he's absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, because there's a lot of promise that came from Bobby Dalbec, especially. I mean, we're turning back the clock a few years, but the end of the COVID season in 2020, when he was our home run leader, and then the second half of 2021 going into that playoff run, he was excellent. He had, I love the barrel rate stat, because that really doesn't mean shit, but he had the second highest barrel rate in baseball or whatever. But he did play well in the second half, regardless. Like he got it, I think in the second half, 275, had double digit bombs, got his RBIs up. I mean, the strikeouts, you expect Bobby Dalbec to strike out twice a game at this point. And I don't know if he's going to necessarily get a shot back up at the major league every day. I don't think the Red Sox want him as an everyday guy, hence them going out to get Justin Turner and keeping Tristan Casas as that first baseman. And I love this defense, to be honest. The defense around the bag has some depth. Let's just talk a little bit about what the lineup they brought out today against the Twins. Kike at short made a great throw. I don't know if you saw it. It was going to his backhand, throwing across his body, and he hit Justin Turner, who Justin Turner was playing first base, scooped it right out of the dirt. Great play. I'm glad Justin Turner is playing first base early on to get kind of that feel back. I don't think he's played first base in a little bit, but I expect Casas to be that first baseman come opening day. Yeah. But Justin Turner is a guy who you can put him at third one day if Rafi needs an off day. You can put him at first depending on a matchup. Like if Tristan Casas is struggling against lefties, you put in Justin Turner as that righty option, because like we said before, this lineup has a lot of lefties. So we need to figure out that rotation.
Yeah, and Turner, who finished last year very hot with the Dodgers, he's probably going to be our everyday DH. I don't see anybody else filling into that spot, but you're right. He can play in the field on days that they need off, and that's why I think that Bobby Dalbec needs to be on this opening day roster as well. Obviously not as a starter, but on days where maybe Casas is playing a lefty or something like that, he needs someone to fill in. Dalbec can come in, Turner stays in. Like I said, we have a lot of lefties on our team. By the looks of it, with our opening a lot of people's opening day lineup predictions, it looks like we're going to be having like 5 lefties and 4 righties, which last year, how many lefties did we have on, like, I mean, on our fully healthy roster? Maybe like 3, 2 or 3. Rafi Durant was up there sometimes, Verdugo, and I think that's about it. Casas, once he came back up. But, you know, I'm glad that we got a few lefties on the squad, and I'm glad that, you know, Duvall came in today. He had a walk, struck out once. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you win a game against the Twins that obviously was on Monday. On Tuesday, excuse me. An ad just played on my laptop. But this is kind of the lineup that they went out with today was what a lot of people are around what a lot of people are thinking that they're going to run with the exception of Duran in center field, maybe Duvall at center, and then you throw Casas at first, and then you throw Turner at DH. I feel like a variation of something like that. So this was kind of our first look at it. And I do want to say Cutter Crawford in 2 innings, only let up 2 hits. He had 2 Ks, no earned runs. He pitched pretty well out there today. And they're looking at Cutter Crawford to be a starter for this team.
Yeah, I know. And Cutter Crawford was one of those guys who went on a pretty good stretch last year, especially at the beginning part of July, where he pitched very well for this team. And he's a project player, right? This is kind of one of those seasons where a lot of Red Sox fans right now are like, oh, this is just a rebuild year. But if these guys exceed expectations or they play the way that they know they can play, this team could be a sneaky wild card team, right? I mean, we look at the Red Sox offseason as a loss, right? We lost our captain. We lost Xander Bogaerts. That hurts. But you look at the acquisitions. Like, I don't want to talk about the losses. We've spent all offseason talking about the losses. We spent all of last season talking about the losses as well. But look at the acquisitions. Piece by piece, they don't look too exciting. But overall, it's pretty damn exciting in my opinion. I think they filled a lot of holes like Justin Turner, Masataka Yoshida, Adam Duvall. I'm going to consider Tristan Casas as kind of an acquisition because he wasn't on this opening day roster last year. Alberto Mondesi, when he comes back, these bats, as a whole, it's a pretty decent lineup. The only thing that concerns me is the pitching. Chris Sale, we don't know. We don't know, right? Like, he could be ready opening day, but I don't like counting on Chris Sale at this point. But if we have a healthy Chris Sale, then you go to Corey Kluber, who is a decent pitcher at this stage of his career, a guy who can get the job done. You'll need to piggyback him with a guy like Tanner Houck, for example, just I'm spitballing names.
Yeah.
Then you go to Pivetta, who's a streaky pitcher. He can go on stretches, but he can also look like the worst pitcher in the MLB. Garrett Whitlock, who wasn't a great starter last year, who I personally wish he was in the bullpen, but that's neither here or that. And you go James Paxton, we haven't really seen in the last year and a half, 2 years. So if these guys stay healthy, this is a pretty decent starting rotation. But if the trends continue, I'm very worried about the starting rotation of this Boston Red Sox team.
Yeah, and the thing that stinks is, Stav, like our lineup, our hitters, I don't mind them. I don't mind the way that our lineup looked today. I don't mind the way that I feel like our opening day lineup is going to look. I feel like we might be all right on the offensive side. We're not going to be anything too special, like, I mean, unless something happens. But I feel like we can bring out a serviceable lineup. It's really going to come down to pitching this year, and that's, you know, a tough position to be in, especially when your farm system is loaded with talent. And you have names like Brian Bayo, you said, who we saw shaky last year. We brought him up way too early just to fill in, obviously, for Chris Sale going out. You have another guy like Brian Mata, who is probably our number 1 pitching prospect, who had the COVID year. There was no minor league in the COVID year. Got Tommy John, and then last year made his return, started in low A, and went all the way up to Triple A in 1 year. In Brian Mata, and I watched him pitch a handful of times. I mean, special. He throws heat. He has good stuff. It's really just about getting. I want to say he actually pitched. No, he didn't. Somebody else pitched yesterday, but he's someone that I'd be looking out for to maybe get called up at some point. Not early in the season, but we have like a few names where I just feel like we're like a couple years behind on pitching. We're almost there with our hitters, and we're just at a tough spot because, like you said, Chris Sale, he hops on a Peloton and he's out for 2 months. Corey Kluber almost won the Cy Young in 2017, and Sale actually won it. But since then, I mean, he's been nothing too special.
Yeah.
Nicky Meatballs. I mean, you went through all these guys, but I mean, Nicky Meatballs, that's all I have to say. The kid throws a curveball, and it's like, I mean, people say you want like a 12-6. He has like a 10-4. It just goes literally like up right into the strike zone, right into the middle of the strike zone. And if you're a lefty playing against Nicky Meatballs, you're taking that. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're John Carlos Stanton, you're taking it over the short porch and then into the river. Like, our pitching sucks. It's not even like we have any hope for it, because unless like a Brian Bayo comes along and begins his Pedro Martinez-esque, and I'm knocking on wood right now, career, I don't see a future for this team this year, and it's
I agree.
pitching.
I put the ceiling as a wild card team.
Mm-hmm.
That's the absolute ceiling.
I think they can do it as well. It's really just up to who's throwing
the bat. They're gonna have to score 6 runs a game. To be honest, I mean, I think the pitching, especially the bullpen has improved from last year.
The bullpen has improved.
The starters concern me, and I'm just gonna go through my opening day lineup prediction, okay. And I do love this lineup. Masataka Yoshida leading off. Kike in the 2, Rocky in the 3 hole. Cleanup, I'm going to have JT. Cassis in the 5, Verdugo in the 6, Adam Duvall in the 7th, Arroyo 8th, McGuire or Wong 9th. And I think that's a pretty solid lineup. And if Arroyo can kind of get the job done, be around a 250 hitter, this lineup is pretty goddamn dangerous, in my opinion. And I think that teams are not going to want to face this team because you really can't pitch around certain people. And if these guys are hot, if Justin Turner can play the way he does, if he could be a 300 hitter, if Rocky can be a 30 home run guy, if Cassis can be in the 20s, if Yoshida lives up to the predictions that teams are giving him. People always say that he was an overpay, but MLB.com is projecting him to go to bat 300 and hit 20 home runs. So if we can get that out of our leadoff guy, this lineup fucks. There's no way around it. This lineup is a pretty goddamn good lineup if Yoshida can do that. And Kike is really taking the leadership role of this clubhouse. And if he can translate his off the field leadership onto the field leadership, then this lineup is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And then we'll just have to hold our breath in the next half of the inning when we're pitching.
Yeah, and I like your opening day lineup idea. The issue is with that, I have pretty much the same exact thing. It's just when you get into that heart where you have Rafi, JT, and then Casas, it's just a lot of lefties in a row. JT's a righty, but it's hard with the lefties. At some point, you're gonna have to go back-to-back lefty.
That's where I put Verdugo and Cassis.
But you'd have Cassis before Verdugo.
Yes, because I think the pop that Cassis would bring after JT getting on base is what this lineup is going to look for. And then
I mean, I like it. I like it. I don't even know what I would do with this lineup. I actually don't know. There's so many different variations where you could throw Duvall up earlier, and it really depends on who actually comes through for us. But I love the idea of that first 3 being Yoshida, Kike, and then Devers. I want Devers in the 3 hole. Obviously, Cora loves him to be a 2, but if you're gonna have Yoshida leading off, then you don't want to start the game off lefty, especially if you're going up against a lefty. Then it obviously would be a totally different look. My guess would be Kike would be leading off in that situation or something like that. But I feel like just the way that Alex Cora manages our opening day roster wouldn't be the same if a righty plays a lefty, if a lefty plays a righty, or if there's a righty that has a high barrel rate against a lefty later than July 21st or something like that. Like, it's Alex Cora, he knows numbers better than I do, or whoever knows numbers over there knows it better than I do. So we're going to see a lot of different variations of this lineup when fully healthy. There isn't going to be anything set in stone, and we could see Yoshida batting first. We could see him batting fifth. We could see him batting third. And we could see Rafi around that 2 or 3 spot. We could see Turner around that 4. But I mean, who knows with Turner? I mean, if he doesn't come through, we could see him later in the lineup. Like, it's this team, man. I mean, it's hard to really get a good grasp on them because we've only played 2 grapefruit games. I watched their game against Northeastern, a 7-inning game where they almost gave up a lead, which would have been a great, fantastic start to our season. But if I want to bring up one person that I'm going to be looking out for that I'm praying makes the opening day roster, the only thing that hurts him is that he bats lefty. A name that I want to bring up is Emmanuel Valdez.
Okay.
I like him a lot. He's a 24-year-old from the Dominican Republic. He's listed as a third baseman. I think that he could be a starting second baseman a month into the season. I have a lot of faith in this guy. I watched him a lot at the AAA level as well. And as a 23-year-old, he was hitting bombs. He was stealing bags. He was doing everything for the team. And Emmanuel Valdez plays great defense as well at every single spot in the infield. He can play first. He can play third. He can play second. I haven't seen him too much at shortstop, but Emmanuel Valdez, and he's 24 years old. And, you could say that's young, but there's other guys in the league. I mean, Juan Soto's like a Hall of Famer, and I think he's 24 years old, and Rafael Devers as well. This is a guy that I'm looking for, and there's a few guys, if you look through this farm system, there's a lot of pitching prospects. There is a few fielders. There's a few guys on minor league deals that I could easily see taking a big step this year. Emmanuel Valdez is my number one guy right now. I think that he could start over Christian Arroyo.
I don't hate that at all. And I hate that I'm saying this. But I'm excited to see what Jarren Duran can do this season.
Yeah. And he's another spring training guy, so him hitting a home run today means nothing.
I know, but his swing is so much improved, and it seems as if he's been in the lab this offseason. It seems as if he's taken what everyone said to heart. It seems as if he worked his ass off this offseason. He's a guy who's ripped. He has tree trunks for legs, tree trunks for arms. And he's swinging the ball. He's not trying to pull it. He's having opposite field power, dude. That's what we've been lacking from Jarren Duran. And if he can spray the ball when he's up to bat, he could be the starting center fielder of the Red Sox. He was making some plays defensively. I know it's spring training. We have to preface everything that we say. We know it's spring training. We know it's not under the big lights and primetime Sunday Night Baseball. But if Jarren Duran continues this, how can you leave him off this roster, essentially? That's where the depth comes in. Maybe you even, I don't want to say, like, if Jarren Duran continues to swing the ball or swing the bat as he's been doing, I can see him taking Adam Duvall's spot to be in this lineup. The only thing that hurts him, same thing with Emmanuel Valdez, because I love that you brought this up. He's a lefty. There's way too many lefties in this lineup. And that's why
Which is like, where were they last year? Where were all these lefties? Like, I know Duran was there, Casas was around, but like nobody was producing on the right side of the batter's box, and it hurt us last year. It was really just Devers, and then obviously JD was a righty, and Xander obviously was a righty. But like you said, Stav, it's funny because I feel like every single day, or at least every single time that I watch a Red Sox game, there's only been 3 or 4 of them now, but or watching WE, I hear the name Xander Bogaerts. He's gone. He is gone. Yeah. He is gone. So I just need to remind everybody he is not on the Boston Red Sox, and I'm ready to start this season. It's officially the start of the season. The mourning period is over, and I say, Stav, as a podcast, we need to pick somebody that we will live and die for on this baseball team. You know,
All right.
and he can lose us. He can lose. Like last year, do you remember? Who was my guy?
Franchi. It was Franchi.
No,
we were the
pitcher.
Cordero fan club.
It was it was a pitcher. And then he couldn't feel the bunt against the Orioles. It rolled over to the left side.
The reliever.
Yes, what's his name?
Oh my God, they cut him. Oh
yeah, he just got DFA'd one day.
A lefty. How am I forgetting this guy's name? Shut up, Siri.
Oh I'm literally picturing his face in my head right now.
What's his face? Oh my God! I
follow him on Instagram.
This is just terrible. This is the second time we've done this episode.
I know, but Hirokazu Sawamura.
Yes, thank you. Oh my God.
Yeah. Hirokazu Sawamura was my guy last year. He can, but that's what I'm saying. This guy can lose us this year, but we need to pick our guy. It doesn't have to be this episode, but I'm saying like a few early guys that we could be looking out for is a guy like a Cutter Crawford, because you get a little guy out of the bullpen and you see what he can do. Another guy like that, maybe a John Schreiber. I don't know. There's
all right. So we should say as a podcast, like the guy that we're picking, it can't be like Rafael Devers. Like, yeah, no shit.
No, that's why I just said John Schreiber.
I say we pick one pitcher and one guy.
Love it. You know what? We'll have some time to decide. We won't decide on this episode.
Yeah, we'll.
Okay.
I don't want to say we're going to put up a poll because it's a podcast decision.
It's us.
Yeah,
but it will be known who our guys are, and we will ride and die for them until they fail us.
Yeah, until they can't throw the bunt against the Orioles that loses the game.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. Me giving up on Masataka Yoshida last year, I kind of sold stock at the right time. Yeah. Right when he didn't field that bunt, I was out on him. It was like an automatic switch from 100% to 0%. I officially gave up on him. I didn't want to see him ever again. And hopefully that doesn't happen for our guy this year.
You know what I just kind of like thought of off the top of my head? We still have Trevor Story. Like, Trevor Story
if he ever plays.
Yeah, but like, we had Trevor Story in this lineup. This lineup is fucking awesome. Like, I like this lineup with Trevor Story. God damn it.
At short,
second. Why couldn't he have gone to Tommy John at the end of the fucking season last year? Oh, that just irks me. It just irks me.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Sox 2-0 in the Grapefruit League. The Grapefruit League, I also want to say, undebatably the best spring training league.
Some may say that the winner of the Grapefruit League it holds more weight than winning the World Series. So some may say I'm not.
I heard that after Monday, February 27th, if you're 2-0, you're automatically in place to make the playoffs.
Oh, well, I also want to know, as we're wrapping up this episode, remember when I was like looking for my Red Sox jersey before the episode and found it? I just never put it on. It was just like sitting on my bed. It's right here. I was like, oh, shoot, I can put this on for the first time in a few months. Yeah, I just never did.
Well, all right. I think that this wraps up the episode, though.
100%.
All right.
I bet Griff and I, like I said before we started the segment, we could talk Red Sox baseball for 3 hours.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe at some point we'll do a Red Sox special. I think we should coming up soon. I think maybe in the next coming weeks we need to do like a specific episodes, specific college basketball, specific to NBA and specific to MLB to kind of just get like an hour and a half to get everything kind of in place here. But we're in the high heat of the football offseason, and when it's the football offseason, that means every single other sport is in play. So, we're going to be talking about everything. Who knows? The Bruins are still the best team in hockey. So at some point, we're going to have to start talking about them. Shout out Olmark for, a beautiful goalie goal, beautiful celebration. Yeah. Just a fun team to watch. Dmitry Orlov, new team member as well. Just a lot of news, but I say we wrap up before we even start talking about Bruins. We said we weren't going to talk about them today, so we won't. Maybe we will at some point. Like I said, we will have to wait and see. But Stav, if you don't have anything else.
I'm done.
All right. We hope you guys enjoy the rest of the week. We will catch you guys later, and peace.